setup is so good and the quality.
Oh, thank you. I'm
You're
shocked.
welcome. It's super good. There's a thunderstorm on my end, so you might hear thunder. Hopefully, there's no flickering of the lights, but yeah.
Okay.
So I'll do my intro first. Hi, I'm Shayna, and welcome back to the PCOS Life, where we talk all things PCOS. Today, we're going to be talking about PCOS and thyroid cancer because we have Kalia here, who's going to share her story in the medical or her story seeking treatment for PCOS and her thyroid cancer in the American healthcare system. So I'll give the floor over to Kalia to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kalia. I am 36 years old, and I did have thyroid cancer when I was 21.
Yes, yes. And I do also want to mention in this intro of Kalia to go follow her on YouTube. Go follow her on sorry, do you have a YouTube? Was it YouTube and
I do, but I don't really use that.
okay, we won't say YouTube. Go follow her on Instagram
And
and
TikTok.
TikTok. She has a huge following on Instagram, by the way, and she shares a little bit about her journey. So I think it's really cool that you have access to go follow her and hear more from her about her journey. So make sure you do that.
Yeah.
But so okay, first question that I have for you is I know that you have PCOS and thyroid cancer. So which did you discover first?
I discovered that I had PCOS first when I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
in about high school. When I kind of think about it and like think back to it, I feel like my mom also had it, but she was never like diagnosed. Like when she would tell me certain things about her menstrual cycle and like how she used to have to go to the ER for um like her cramps and pain.
Mm.
So like, or sometimes she wouldn't have it, and I guess in those times they didn't really think of it being that much of an issue, I guess. um so yes, when I was about in ninth or 10th grade, I did end up having a cyst rupture, and I think that's when they really started to realize that there was an issue.
Yeah, and I think that even like thinking about me and like my mom had issues with conceiving and she also had they were telling her she might have endometriosis, but just to kind of know that like our parents, even the access that they had and the healthcare that they had wasn't very inclusive, and they were still learning about reproductive health, right? And still
Exactly.
learning about all of those conditions. And even now, obviously, there's not enough research about PCOS still. But to know that they may have had it, we don't really know. And this most likely is genetic. And to kind of have to figure that out for ourselves and look back at like, okay, well, what did my mom go through, right? And what am
Mhm.
I going through? But I think that's interesting. But I remember you telling me when we had our meeting about when you were younger having doctor's appointments because they were concerned about your thyroid.
Yes. So I always have been a overweight child, and I did have this one doctor who was a black woman,
Hmm.
and she was really concerned about my thyroid. I don't know like what really led her to those like presumptions, but she did test my thyroid and stuff when I was probably like a preteen, and nothing ever like came back showing any, I guess, abnormalities for like her to be more concerned. And I do feel as though, like now thinking about it, she did end up like retiring while I was like going to see her. So I do feel as though like if I was continuing to see her, that the outcomes could have been a little bit different. um and now that I think about it, I don't really think that I had any like really good doctors like that after her, which is really unfortunate because you rely on doctors so much for care, but you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Like, of course, right? They're the experts when it comes to
Hmm.
health. So we rely on them to tell us what's going on with our health. And it sucks when we don't have access or we just don't have a good quality doctor.
And don't feel heard.
And don't feel heard, yes. And one of the things that I found interesting when I spoke to my doctor after I found out I had thyroid cancer was that one, when you're diagnosed with PCOS, doctors should rule out other thyroid issues, which they most times don't do. Then the other thing is that even during a physical, a yearly checkup, that doctors are supposed to be feeling around the neck and kind of, checking your thyroid, which is also something that many doctors don't do.
Yes, I do not recall like that happening on a consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, which is interesting and unfortunate because we think about the fact that both of our thyroid cancer was caught really late, So can you kind of go into more about that, your journey with thyroid cancer and what led up to you discovering that you had thyroid cancer?
So it was about 20 well 2007, and I work in education. I've been working in education for a very long time. So it was early in the beginning of the school year, September. And I just started like overall just not feeling myself. I wasn't able to eat. My mobility started being really weird. I was having like some issues with my legs. I started having pancreatitis. I was just having all these weird symptoms. So I would go to the doctor, I would go to the hospital, and they kind of like were ruling it out like, like she's crazy basically, because how could I have pancreatitis with nothing wrong with my pancreas, with nothing wrong with my gallbladder, with nothing wrong with any of those organs that would, signify something along those lines. Um, and then they would send me back out. Then I would be back in the hospital. I would be falling. I lost 65 pounds in like a month because I could not eat anything. I couldn't even smell food. And it was like there was no answers for me. One of my friends' mothers had came to visit me one time in the hospital and was asked about my thyroid. I don't know like what she noticed because her daughter also has a thyroid issue. So then it was brought to my attention that I have Graves' disease. So after that, like when I left the hospital, I started going to an endocrinologist, and then it was just like everything that she was offering as treatments, they weren't like helping me at all. I was still in the same state of not being able to eat. Oh, try baby food. I couldn't even eat baby food. Um, it was horrible. And this was all occurring within 3 months. So it wasn't even like, it was just no relief. Um, she had ended up wanting me to have radiation pills. I don't know exactly what they were called at this time because it was so long ago. But she was very adamant about me doing it. And that's what I'm also saying about like the relationship with doctors. Like you don't feel heard, you don't feel at least respected enough to look at all type of options. And she was just, her demeanor was so nasty. So even if that was also the best choice for me, it didn't seem like it was the best choice. And I just didn't feel right about like doing it. So then I ended up back in the hospital again. And that time I was in there for about a month. I was in there during Thanksgiving. I ended up having a PIC line. I was on a feeding tube because I couldn't like, I wasn't getting any nutrients, and I was very weak. I really couldn't like get around. And I ended up having to like really, I also do remember like when I was saying I had the leg pains and like I didn't really know what was going on. They had put these like really long needles like in my legs to see if it was like something I guess going on with my bones and all. So like it was nothing coming out of any of these like symptoms. So again, that's why I was making it look like I was crazy. But in a sense, my thyroid was, attacking everything in my body, but they still weren't really like focused on like, oh, what if it is that? So if my friend's mom never was there, would I even be here today? I don't know. And it's really crazy when you think about that. But I had to end up like advocating, like, oh, well, we don't know what we're going to do. I'm like, well, can you just take my thyroid out? Because at this point, if this is, if nothing else is working, just take it out. So when they ended up doing that, I do believe like right after that, I started feeling like so much better. I ended up being able to eat in the hospital before I could leave. And so that also helped for me to get, back home. I ended up using a cane and stuff when I got back home. And at this point, I'm just believing that I had a thyroidectomy. I don't even know anything about even having thyroid cancer at this point. So, um, a couple, maybe a week or so later, I end up going to the follow-up appointment for the surgery. I don't even know why I drove because I probably shouldn't have been driving. But and that's another thing too. Like I had to relearn. I know I'm like jumping all over the place, but I had to relearn how to be able to kind of walk again because I was using a cane and getting up and down out of seats, getting in and out of the car. Like that's another reason why I don't even understand how I drove there because I struggled a lot with like learning those things again. But when I went to the follow up appointment, like everything was good. I was, making progress. And when the doctor told me that they had discovered that I had thyroid cancer when they removed my thyroid, um, it's really scary because what if I never basically demanded for that to be removed? Like, would I be here right now? Um, when I was, explaining how the endocrinologist was very adamant about me taking the radiation pills, the surgeon had informed me, like, if I had did that, I could have spread that cancer throughout my body. So that was like really scary because what if I had gave in to her because she was pressuring me so much to do that? Again, would I be here today? Because I could have, in a sense, harm myself because I'm trying to listen to medical professionals who aren't really, having my best interests in mind. And then again, it makes you think too, like if I was, not the race that I am, if I wasn't overweight, would they also think it's something else? Because everything is just always, it's your weight, it's your weight. But if I have a thyroid issue, that affects my weight. Like that's not taken into consideration. And yeah, so like even today, I still like have some thyroid issues. I don't really technically know what the diagnosis is. Is it overactive, under? I don't really know. But it's not something that I'm like not wanting to know. I just feel like it's just so hard to pinpoint at times. So I'm just trying to you know, live each day with positive thoughts and wanting to know about my own health so I can advocate for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, so many things that I want to touch on from you sharing that story, because one, I think it's absolutely crazy that if your friend's mom didn't visit you and kind of give you the idea that like maybe is your thyroid, like you said, would you be here today? Would you be alive? Because clearly the cancer was affecting you very aggressively.
Exactly.
And I find it super interesting, and I don't want to get too much on my story because I was experiencing crazy symptoms in these last few months, and my whole life I obviously had this lump, and it was very visible. I don't understand how doctors didn't see it, for one, but for
Exactly.
two, yeah, for two, It was only within this last few months that I started having really crazy symptoms similar to yours, the weight loss, I couldn't eat. And the leg thing is really weird because my legs started to hurt, like muscle soreness, right? And then I would lay down and I like laying on my side. And one thing that I remember very specifically is my legs couldn't be on top of each other because I would
Mm.
feel my bone, my knee bone on my other knee bone, and it would hurt. It would ache. Like I was just becoming very weak and fragile. And I've never experienced that in my life, like just bones aching or anything like that. I couldn't walking up the stairs was very painful, tiresome. I couldn't walk my dog. I would feel like I'm about to pass out. Um, so it's just interesting to kind of hear the similarities in our symptoms with thyroid cancer. And even when I went to the hospital, because I was feeling really bad one day and I had like chest pain and stuff, and I had like cramps in my stomach, the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, it may be because of your thyroid cancer, but it may not be." Because I already had my diagnosis though.
Mhm.
But also my primary care tell me, well, it may be, but it may not be. And them kind of just letting it, be up in the air instead of doing more testing, instead of finding out definitively what it is. So I think that's super interesting because even when you look up thyroid cancer right now, symptoms won't show anything that we both have experienced. And since my surgery, like you said, you started slowly getting better, same. I'm able to eat, I feel strong again. It's taking me time to even get back in the gym, but the strength is coming slowly. So I think that's really crazy. And then the other thing that you said that was really interesting is you're the one who asked for the thyroidectomy. Like you're the one who said no, take out my thyroid. And the pathology results came back saying that it was cancer, and it wasn't even them that like did an ultrasound to check before to say, you know what, you do have nodules, it is probably cancer. It that it was only after that they found out it was cancer is absolutely crazy to me. um
At 21.
at 21, that's so young.
And like it's also because like why do you have to advocate for yourself like at that young age? Like
Yeah,
at 21 all my friends were doing everything and I'm over
mhm.
here and
In
don't
the
know what's going on
hospital
with me.
fighting with doctors. And then it sucks because who at 21 has enough education about, human anatomy and physiology in order to advocate for themselves when they're sick? So yeah, yeah, it's crazy. um I also wanted to ask too, let me go back to my questions, but you had mentioned too about, one being a person of color and also being overweight and having your quality of treatment be determined based upon those two things. And I think that a lot of women experience, even with just PCOS, lose weight as being something that's thrown at you without doctors even questioning, well, what is your nutrition like, what is your fitness activity level like? um so can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, did doctors specifically say, oh, maybe you just need to lose weight, or what was your experience with that?
um still get that every every appointment, and I still have very much like anxiety when I go to any type of doctor because
Yeah.
that's just the first thing that they always say. Like I don't even feel like I am the person to sit there and overeat. I don't sit I'm not like trying to shame anyone or if that's what they do. I'm not sitting here eating multiple pizzas. I'm not sitting here eating multiple, like I don't even eat like that. Even
Yeah.
some of my friends would like they would never see me eat when we went out to eat because I just really couldn't eat like that.
Mhm.
Um I do always remember even being younger, like that's all they said as a child. I remember even like my mom trying to like put me on diets and stuff because that's what she knew. That's what she like how she was raised. And
Mhm.
like even going back to me thinking, about her having it. And it's just still generational like weight views.
Mhm.
And I've even had weight loss surgery. It's been about 6 years. I lost some weight, I gained some back, but I'm still not where I was. But I also feel like the PCOS and my thyroid still affects that because I can drink water all day long. I can eat salads. I can do this, but that's not going to change the scale if my thyroid is out of whack. And
Yes.
I feel like that is really not taken into consideration. I'm just looked at as someone who is lazy and who doesn't want to um like move around. And it's very unfortunate that that is the only way that I'm viewed. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not viewed as someone who is knowledgeable about, life, or um like, again, I said, I work in education. I work with children with mental health issues, with behavioral issues, and being able to relate to them, that's more than just, oh, you're big, or things like that. And it's just really sad that that is how society is, that because I'm overweight and I'm a black woman, that I'm viewed as less than, and not
Yeah.
worthy enough to make it in life.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah. Yeah. Or receive proper health care,
exactly.
quality health care. Um, yeah, like, and I think it also is discouraging, like, because you know that that's what doctors are going to say or refer to. I feel like it may discourage people to even go get healthcare. Like,
Ex-
okay, I don't want to go to the doctors because I know what they're going to say. I know how they're going to treat me and how they're going to gaslight me and disregard my concerns.
exactly.
Um, yeah. Um, and I want to touch on another thing, because you said that still something that you're kind of dealing with is your thyroid and your PCOS. One of the things that I always talk about on my channel is PCOS makes it hard to lose weight. PCOS causes you to gain weight. Also, thyroid conditions cause you to gain weight. So I don't understand how doctors logically can tell patients just lose weight, because I can't, because of my illness that you are not helping me with. So how do you expect me to lose weight? And I often hear people telling me, my doctor told me to eat less and train more, without even asking the patient what the patient is doing. And a lot of patients are under eating and they're
Mhm.
overtraining. Um, and so I suppose my question to you is, what's kind of happening with your PCOS and your thyroid now? Like, currently, are you, what medical treatment are you, what are they doing for you? What are your doctors doing for medical treatment for your PCOS and your thyroid cancer? Are you taking any medicines, or what are you doing holistically or nutritionally or anything like that to kind of help?
So right now, I just want to say too, like, I do feel like ever since I was like diagnosed with thyroid issues and thyroid cancer, that I experienced so many emotional I'm like, what is the word? I don't want to say like disordered or like my emotion levels, my irritability, like it really has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. Like, I wasn't always this irritable or always this moody. I was, to a sense, but never to this extreme. And
Mm-hmm.
when you try to explain it to people, because that also is, those are symptoms,
Yep.
it's not taken seriously. Also, maybe again, because I am a woman of color, that it's already,
A
oh,
stigma, yeah.
exactly. So it's like I also don't get
Stereotype.
the proper treatment in that area as well. And another thing that I was recently like diagnosed with was depression, but I do think it still relates to all of these things. Um, so that has been something that has helped my mental health by being on depression meds, because it kind of helps me regulate a little bit better. But also for my PCOS, I not really like taking anything at this time. Like when I mentioned before, I had weight loss surgery some years ago. That's the only thing that has helped me to have a regular period. So I used to go sometimes 6 months without having
Yeah.
my cycle. So that's like, so I do kind of feel like doctors right now will try to say I don't have PCOS because my main thing was my period is regular now. but it's
Well,
only because I did, even though I've gained weight back, I'm
yeah.
probably still just down like 60 from whenever my highest documented weight was. But I don't feel like that's the solution that
Yeah.
it made it. I don't have PCOS anymore.
Mhm.
But again, it's I just still feel like doctors overlook things. As far as my thyroid levels, and I'm not currently on any thyroid medication. I used to take levothyroxine, but then they figured out that it was too much of the hormone for the piece of like thyroid that I already had left. I think if they knew that it was like I had thyroid cancer before they did the thyroidectomy, that they would have took more out. So I feel like sometimes meds are too much for me. I do
Mhm.
kind of believe that I somewhat need it a little bit right now, and I
Mhm.
do have to go get some blood work. But I'm still open to see what whatever is going on. But I guess holistically, I take my time to rest. When I know that I've used all my spoons, I used to always want to like overachieve because of the stigma that I'm already lazy.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm only hurting myself by trying to do those things. So mainly like over this past year, whenever I feel like I can't do something, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to overextend myself to prove a point to someone else. Like,
Yeah.
no, I come first. I'm important. Somebody else may not view me as important, but I'm important and I need to worry about me so I can continue to be the best person that I can be.
I could not agree more. I think stress management and even like just mental health is so overlooked when it comes to many conditions,
Hmm.
but also just like PCOS, general weight loss. Um, so many things are affected by our cortisol levels, right? Having increased cortisol levels. So many things causes us stress in our life. But then also obviously dealing with this health conditions causes you to be stressed outwardly on top of the fact that inwardly you have chemical changes
Yes.
causing you to be depressed and stressed. And so one of the biggest things I always talk about is manage your stress, rest, recover. But there is a huge stigma of being lazy, right?
Hmm.
um, if you're overweight, you're lazy. If you have PCOS, you're lazy. Chronic fatigue, you're lazy. um, and it's so sad because I find a lot of people trying to do more because of that, and then they burn out twice as much.
Overcompensating.
Yeah, overcompensating is just so tough. Um, but I'm glad to hear that, and that's really good. I do have a question. So your cycles being normal, I know you said earlier you took birth control when you were first diagnosed with PCOS, or they wanted to give you birth control.
I did end up taking it when I was in high school.
Okay, and then did your cycles become regular after the thyroid surgery?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I believe that maybe because it was like so long ago, I think that it initially started happening a little bit more often, but it still wasn't regular.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's only probably, I had weight loss surgery in 2015. So it's only been 6, 7 years that I've
Mhm.
had a regular period. I've always had like very heavy flows, so I still kind of have that, but it's not as long as it used to be whenever I did have it.
Yeah. And you also said too, doctors like to pretend or they assume that you don't have PCOS anymore just because your cycles are regular, which is silly because we know that you can have a regular cycle and still have PCOS. Um, so that can understandably be frustrating as well. Um, so trying to think what question I want to ask next. So I think I have just like the. Is there anything else that you want to share about your journey first, and then I'll ask you the last like concluding questions.
Um, I just, I guess I just want to say, like, just trust your gut and trust yourself. Like, when you know something doesn't feel right, and even what you're being told doesn't feel right, like, trust your gut. Get other opinions. Um, Advocate for yourself, even if you don't really know like what the outcome is or what. You just have to know that no one can tell you that something's not going on with your body when you are physically feeling that every day, and that doesn't mean that you're crazy. Like,
Yep.
it just doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a super important message. Um, to trust your instincts, trust your gut, and continue advocating for yourself, because to doctors, we are simply another patient, but this is our quality of life, our health. Um, so you
Oh,
kind of
also,
answered one of
i'm
my.
sorry
Oh,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like, even again, like I said, I work with in schools with children with mental health issues and things like that. Even in like my stance of learning to advocate for myself at 21, I try to teach these students to advocate for themselves at whatever age it is, because nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And I do believe that, despite the craziness that my life has been, being able to share, I mean, I don't really share my story with them like that, but I do share with them the importance of advocating for themselves, to be able to speak up for themselves, even if they have some type of communication disability or something like that. You still have ways to communicate, and
Hmm.
you need to be confident in those ways to communicate. So
Yeah.
again, and advocating for yourself is so important.
Yeah. I can only imagine how much that would have helped me when I was in school, to have someone teach me about the importance of advocating for myself, because it's not anything I've ever learned, right, or was
Right.
aware of until I'm being gaslit by a doctor when I know
Right.
something's wrong.
And
So,
even whatever situation, if
and
it's
whatever
a
situation,
grade,
yeah, yeah. And I think that a topic for a different day, but like we are taught in America or in as children is to just be submissive, listen, be quiet, try not to make a scene, like,
Mhm.
and be complacent and compliant with things, even if we don't agree with it. And that's such a dangerous thing to teach people, to teach women, because I think obviously women are taught that, but then also being black and being told you need to be quiet, you don't want to look like a certain type of person or look a certain type of way, is also super dangerous,
Yes.
because we have a voice and our voices need to be heard. um and the other thing is that patients do seem frustrated a lot of the time when they're dealing with health issues, but justifiably so, because we deal with a lot in the healthcare
Mhm.
industry, being gaslit, and um something that Tiana Love Served Warm had said when I interviewed her was that doctors are to black women what police are to black men, and I
That
completely agree,
absolutely,
because
absolutely agree.
yeah, because they don't listen to us. That honestly, think about healthcare and how, like, even your thyroid cancer, how serious that could have been. Um, of course, yeah, you could have died if you didn't demand to have a thyroidectomy. And that's so sad to think about. You were in the hospital and no doctor decided to do an ultrasound, a really quick, simple test. So yeah, super important. Um, how do you kind of answer my question, because I was gonna ask, what do you have to say to those dealing with health issues? Um, but what do you feel needs to change about the healthcare system? Or what do you think can happen to create that change?
I think it needs to be a lot more of out of the box thinking, because when you think of the health system as a whole, like, who it was created by, who it is, still catered to. Like, everyone is not the same. People
Mhm.
do have different uh symptoms, different characteristics of things. And I do think it needs to be a broader horizon, in that we need more people like us, but it's so hard for them, which is unfortunate, or that they have to have an open mindset, because it's not everything that's documented in the books.
Yeah.
There are things that aren't talked about, and I feel like it's just not, it's not broad enough. And hopefully people will want to explore other, options and alternatives, because everyone deserves, care and
Yep.
treatment.
Yep. Yep. Everyone deserves the same quality of care. Um, and I think, and it's so tough to even start. I think that's a tough question. I just want to point that out there, because we have to think about, like, there's a lot of different factors, like you said. And
Hmm.
one of the things too is like, think about the fact that people of color don't participate in research, justifiably so. And so we don't have the research in order for doctors to be learning from, to help diagnose and treat and all of that thing. But at the same time, it still doesn't change the fact that doctors aren't doing anything on their part in
Right.
order to provide us with the peace of mind and the kind of just that trust that they are going to be there to help us, that they are listening to us, because
It's not
definitely
just
is the opposite. They
a time
discourage us
clock.
from going.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I think that was it. Do you have anything else to say to the world? And it could be the healthcare system, or to people who have PCOS or thyroid cancer.
Um, I guess I just want to say, like, thank you for, listening to my story, and that I hope that it can help someone. Um, I hope if you are experiencing any of these type of symptoms, and you're hearing that it is happening to other people, that you again advocate for yourself and ask for certain testings, and do your own research. I do wish that during my time I had that to be able to do that, but in this day and age, you can do your own research and find out things. So I
Yeah.
think there's an advantage for people that are dealing with it right now. And, you know, even with, finding out that you have it, because, people on TikTok or social media are saying something to you, like, that stuff is very, very important. And I think that people don't need to take that lightly. Like, I've been told that I may have lipidemia because of my, like, this is something that I need to, bless
Excuse
you,
me.
I need to look into, because I want to somewhat respect the things that people are saying. Sometimes, people are going to be negative in everything that they're saying,
Yeah.
but some people do have a good heart and your best interest. So
Yeah.
just be open, but also advocate for yourself and have some discernment to make the best decisions for you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And I want to say thank you to you for being willing to share your story, because obviously our health stories can be a very personal thing. And I think that in itself, the fact that there are so many people who are willing to share their story says um, says something about the healthcare industry. So
Yeah.
I'm super glad to have you here. I'm really thankful that you took the time out to sit down with us and share your story. But I do also want to encourage everyone to go check out your Instagram, and interact with you, and feel free to ask Kalia any questions that you have. And hopefully we can hop on a call and talk about some other interesting topics in the near future.
Yes, I am willing to do that. It sounds great.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to end the what's it called? The broadcast. Oh, do you want to do the outro with me? I'm just gonna say bye. That's like my outro. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, bye.
Bye.
Um, cool. Because the last one I did, I forgot to end it.